Elbaf isn't just an island anymore. It's part of the final saga. This is part 3 of my Elbaf series. Today, we are covering Loki's past and powers, Shank's backstory, the Arust Castle massacre, Imu, the Gods' Knights, and the world government's connection to Elbaf. No more delays, let's dive into some peak One Piece. The story begins on the Oro Jackson. Roger's crew is crowded around the treasure chests, buzzing with excitement, waiting for Roger to wake up. Both Roger and Garp were rescued from God Valley by the Roger pirates, dragged back half dead, but alive. Roger finally opens his eyes. Gloriosa is now also on the ship, officially tagging along with the crew. The crew immediately tells Roger to check out the treasure the moment he wakes up. Roger snaps at them and asks if they even care whether he's alive or if the treasure is more important. Typical pirates. Shaky and Rayleigh are shown together, relaxed and smiling. Shaky is now part of the crew, too. Roger finally looks at the treasure, and yeah, it's insane. Enough gold and valuables to make any pirate forget their own name. Roger walks toward it, still half-bandaged, when suddenly he hears a noise. A voice. Coming from one of the chests. Everyone freezes. Roger opens the chest, and inside is a small, cheerful, and cute baby with red hair, smiling like this is completely normal. Baby Shanks. The entire crew is stunned. This is it. Shanks's past finally gets revealed. The scene shifts as news spreads across the world. The headline everywhere says the Rock's pirates have been completely wiped out, and the man responsible is Monkey D. Garp. The story is heavily altered. The papers praise Garp's heroism, claiming he single-handedly defeated Rox D. Zebek. People cheer. Garp gets crowned with the title Hero of the Marines. Yeah, a fake story, a fully manipulated narrative. Back at Marine HQ in the Grand Line, Garp reads the paper and absolutely loses it. He tears it apart, furious at Morgans for twisting the truth. Sengoku tells him to calm down and says Morgans was obviously paid off by the government. That bribed birdie bastard cares more about money than journalism and has probably been spreading fake news for years. Sengoku explains his perspective. The world government and the Marines are massive organizations. Dozens of member nations. Tens of millions of soldiers worldwide. It's impossible to control every action or motivation. If the top brass ever does something insane, Sengoku says he'll just ignore it and keep doing his job. Garp completely disagrees. It turns into a physical spar between the two, despite them being close friends. Sengoku says change can only happen from the top. Garp snaps back, saying if Sengoku ever becomes corrupt, he'll personally kill him. Sengoku laughs and says that's reassuring, coming from a friend. Sengoku asks if Garp plans to quit the Navy. Garp says no. He says he still has work to do at the bottom of the system. Both of them are good men with completely different ideologies. And honestly, neither of their approaches actually fixes anything about the world government. After all of this, even after witnessing the whole God Valley incident, Garp still let Ace die. Ace was basically his grandson. Roger trusted Garp with his son, and Garp just stood there while Ace was executed right in front of him. That's insane. There's no way around it. The story shifts to Elbaf. Young Loki is alone in the underworld, crying. Beasts surround him, confused but silent. Loki is genuinely broken. The one person who gave him hope, direction, and a reason to live is gone. The man he wanted to set sail with is dead. The one person he admired most is gone forever. Loki remembers Rox. He remembers constantly begging Rox to let him join his crew. Rox always laughed it off, saying he wouldn't take a brat on board. Rox would joke that he wanted Harold, not a snot-nosed kid who wouldn't stop asking questions. We flash back to the past. Rox visiting Elbaf, talking with Loki whenever he came to meet Harold, usually down in the underworld at Ida's bar. Loki tells Rox that he thinks Rox is Nika, a legendary figure in Elbaf. Rox asks what he means. Loki explains that Nika is known as the warrior of liberation, someone who destroys the world while laughing. Rox says he is not trying to destroy the world. He wants to rule it. He wants to become the king of the world. And besides, if anyone has the power to destroy the world, it is Harold. Rox believes that with the legendary devil fruit, Harold will be capable of destroying the world. However, Nika raises a very important point. In Elbaf, the idea of Nika is split. Some believe Nika is a hero who liberates and protects the world. Others believe Nika destroys the current world while laughing. So what if there were more than two Nika? Nika isn't a person. It's a title, a godlike role given to whoever eats the Nika fruit. We know two confirmed users, Joy Boy and Luffy. But what if there were three? What if the first Nika was destructive, the second was Joy Boy, and the third is Luffy? Giants live long lives. They know ancient history. It's completely possible. Back to Rocks. He explains his plan to Loki. He wants to rule the world, and for that, he needs Herald, the king of Elbaf. He talks about the Galella, the slumbering, outrageous band of Ravagers, ancient shipbuilders made up of giants, both ancient and modern. He says that these bands of giants can only be brought back into play by the king of Elbaf, Loki's father, Herald. These giants have been mentioned multiple times now. They are clearly important. Rocks straight up says that to rule the world, you need Elbaf and the Galella. But why? Why shipbuilders? Are they insanely strong? Do they have ancient knowledge? Did they build Pluton? We don't know yet. But one thing is obvious. If you want to challenge the world government or Emu, you need Elbaf and the Galella on your side. The giants once supported Nika. They'll support him again. This time, that's Luffy. Rocks tells Loki to imagine it. Herald, Elbaf, the Galella, and Rocks himself. Who could possibly stop that? Loki is amazed and says that's insanely cool. Loki asks why Rocks and Herald aren't allies already. Rocks answers with one word. Love. Herald is deeply in love with Ida and his country. He wants to change Elbaf so he can live with her. He wants peace. He wants Elbaf connected to the world. He'll do anything for that, even if it costs him everything. Rocks says it doesn't matter. He'll keep coming back again and again, until Herald eventually accepts. Young Loki remembers his idol and breaks down in tears. All the time he spent with his idol flashes through his mind as he cries out alone in the underworld. The scene shifts to another island. Civilians watch in terror as Herald brutally beats a giant who is stealing from humans. Herald doesn't stop. The beating is horrifying. He vents all his frustration on him, blaming people like him for why Elbaf can't join the rest of the world. Others try to stop Herald, telling him the giant is already unconscious. Herald suddenly breaks down crying. Tears pour down his face as he remembers Rocks begging him for help. He remembers refusing him at the most crucial moment. He screams that because he wanted to join the world government, he let his friend die. He says there's no turning back now. He swears he'll never forgive giants who do evil. Herald loses himself completely. The scene shifts to Navy HQ, deep underground. Dragon is imprisoned. Garp visits him. Dragon tells Garp he's quitting the Marines and will never work for them again. Garp casually says, okay. Dragon says he hates Garp. Garp casually replies okay again and tosses him the key. Garp knows Dragon is right, but he won't change his own path. He lets Dragon choose his. This is the end of their relationship. They'll never truly work together again. Dragon was likely pushed into the Marines by Garp. Now he sees what they really are. Dogs of the world government, doing anything to protect celestial dragons. Dragon leaves and starts fighting the real problem, the world government itself. That's the birth of the Revolutionary Army. The scene shifts back to Elbaf. Herald returns home and tells Ida and his sons, Loki and Hajruddin, that he doesn't care about appearances anymore. He tells them he loves them both. He tells them to work together while he's gone. Herald leaves Elbaf and goes to Marineford. A Navy officer tells him he's not welcome. Herald doesn't care. He demands the world government hear him out. Then he does something insane. Herald grabs his horns and rips them out of his skull. Blood everywhere. He places them on the ground and apologizes for every crime giants have committed. He says he wants peace. He says he'll do anything, even become a slave. He only wants Elbaf to be connected with other nations. This decision is terrible. The world government will use Elbaf as military muscle. And we know later they try exactly that. But there is something Harold does in the future that stopped Elbaf from being fully controlled. Something we haven't seen yet. The story then shifts to 33 years before the present, 5 years after the God Valley incident. Some civilians are talking to Newsbird Morgans, sharing a terrifying story. One man tells him that he saw pirates approaching the shore, but behind them, emerging from the mist, there was something massive, a huge, shadowy shape moving with them, way too big to be a ship. At the same time, in the underwater prison of Impel Down, one prisoner is telling his story to the others. He's one of the pirates people were talking about. He says their ship was destroyed before they even realized what was happening. Something enormous, human-shaped, attacked them. The crew was wiped out completely. Elsewhere, on another island, a fisherman warned someone not to sail into the Florian Triangle. He says there's something there, something dangerous. All fishermen avoid that area. There are rumors of a human-like monster hiding in the fog. Then we see it. Fog-covered seas in the Florian Triangle. A pirate ship sails forward when a massive vessel suddenly appears in front of it. A giant steps out of the mist, sword in hand, and in seconds the pirate ship is destroyed. Clean. Brutal. That monster is Harold. Most of the pirates sailing those seas had never even seen a giant before. Imagine seeing a massive humanoid giant appear out of nowhere and deletes your ship. Of course they're terrified. Anyone would be. The narrator explains that Harold now works for the world government in the shadows, backing up the Navy as part of his atonement for centuries of history. The narrator also mentions that former members of the Rock's pirates begin making names for themselves over the following decades. Kaido, Big Mom, Whitebeard. Others like Shiki and Ochoku simply fight over territories. But among all of them, one crew achieves something long believed impossible. They circumnavigate the entire world. That crew is Gold D. Rogers. We see Roger and his crew laughing, dancing, celebrating, completely free. Soon after, Roger becomes known as the King of the Pirates. His execution was meant to be a warning. A public spectacle to show the power of the world government and what happens when someone challenges them. That plan was unbelievably stupid. Because the Great Pirate Era was planned by Roger himself. He was going to die anyway, so he let himself be executed just to throw his words into the crowd. And he did. He told the world about his treasure. The One Piece. The Great Pirate Era begins. Pirates flood the seas. The power balance collapses. The Navy can't handle it. So they start recruiting giants. Almost 10 giants are brought into the Marines to stabilize the system. During this time, Harold continues working for the Navy exactly as ordered. That same year, when Roger is executed, Harold is granted formal permission to visit the Holy Land. He sits directly beside the 5 elders. He's given a shallow sea contract. A mark is placed on his arm. Harold is now officially working for the world government as God's Steel, a subordinate to God's knights like Summers, Shamrock, and Garling. Harold calls it an honor. This mark is the same mark later seen on Shanks' arm when he visits Elbaf, meaning Shanks was also God's Steel at that point. This was before he lost, or deliberately sacrificed his arm to the Sea King when he protected Luffy. The 5 elders explain there are 3 levels of contracts. Shallow sea, deep sea, and deep, deep sea. Only those fully bound to the true God receive the highest level. Only 13 people have ever received it. Harold immediately asks who this God is. Nesjuro says Harold will learn everything once he becomes a Knight of God. Harold only cares about Elbaf. He asks if becoming a Knight of God will allow Elbaf to join the world government. Saturn replies that of course it will. Once Harold becomes a Knight of God, Elbaf will be welcomed. Harold is grateful. He now aims to become a full Knight of God. Harold arrives at Shangara, the Knight's Temple. Garling is there, now the captain of the God's Knights. He wonders what Imu is thinking, letting a giant of Elbaf into their ranks. Summers wonders the same. A young knight is also present. It's either Shanks or Shamrock. Probably Shamrock, but could be Shanks, because in Chapter 1138, Shamrock confirmed that Shanks returned to the Holy Land at some point. Shamrock stands calmly, listening. Summers asks Harold why he would obey them, confused as to why the king of the giants would follow the world government. Harold assures them that he will obey. He tells Summers to give him an order right now. Garling tells Harold to carry a long-distance transponder snail. He is free to travel the surface world, but he must never speak about this deal. Harold agrees. The story jumps to 20 years before the present. Harold is on Fishman Island, drinking with Neptune. They're laughing, relaxed, genuinely happy. Giants and fishmen share a deep bond. Harold says it has been a long time since he laughed this freely. Neptune agrees. Neptune says his son Loki is not bad at heart. He says he cannot forget the days of Harold's youth, which were much worse than Loki's. Harold laughs and says that when you put it like that, maybe. Neptune tells Harold something important. A fortune teller predicted he'll have a daughter in 4 years. The fortune teller was Madame Charlie, the same prophecy she gave Roger. Neptune jokes that Loki should marry her. Harold's reaction is priceless, completely stunned. Neptune laughs and says, "Don't underestimate her. She'll be born with power no one can handle." Harold laughs and says then it's a perfect match. They toast to troublemaker Loki and Neptune's little Mosa. Yes, Mosa. The same Mosa Loki later talks to on a transponder snail in the underworld. Meaning Loki and Shirahoshi already had a connection. Back in Elbaf that same year, Saul arrives. Harold welcomes him warmly and asks him to open a library and a school in Elbaf. Saul agrees. We jump to 15 years before the present. Marie-Joie erupts into chaos. Slaves are being freed. Fisher Tiger is rampaging through the Holy Land. This is the same incident in which slaves were freed from the Holy Land, with Fisher Tiger saving many people. Boa Hancock later shares the story with Luffy, revealing that she was also a slave here. As Fisher Tiger escapes, someone blocks his path. A man with a katana. It's Shanks. Fisher Tiger is shocked. A god's knight stands before him. They might not be able to escape anymore. Shanks charges, wounded. His eye is bandaged, the same scar Shanks has later, meaning he got the scar at this point in time. But Shanks doesn't attack to kill. He breaks Fisher Tiger's chains, tells him the armory is unlocked, gives him directions, and helps him escape. The Holy Land explodes into chaos. We see a young Boa Hancock crying with her sister. We see Koala escaping as well. Fisher Tiger saves countless slaves. This incident would later become well known, when slaves escaped the sacred Holy Land under Fisher Tiger's leadership. However, the major one who helped the slaves escape was none other than Shanks. After this, Fisher Tiger became the captain of the Sun Pirates. Later, the God's Knights discuss this incident. Summer says that someone from the world government must have left the armory open. He says he cannot wait to execute that person who helped free the slaves. They have no idea it was Shanks. Meanwhile, Garling casually introduces Shanks to Harold, saying he's Shamrock's younger brother, separated by circumstances. Yeah, coming from the guy who creates most of them. Garling says Shanks suffered in the surface world and is now where he belongs. Harold says Shanks feels oddly familiar. Shanks shuts him down hard, calls him a commoner giant, says he has the Figureland blood in his veins unlike Harold. He tells Harold not to act so familiar, and declares that he'll become a knight of God before him. Harold apologizes immediately. The red-haired boy is clearly acting, playing the role. The next scene shows the brothers finally reuniting. God's steel devotee Saint Shanks meets his older brother Saint Shamrock, a full knight of God. Shanks immediately starts asking questions. He wants to know more about the Holy Land, how things work here, and then he casually asks if Shamrock has heard anything about the traitor who helped the slaves escape. Shanks even says he wants to be the one to catch that traitor, basically trying to take credit for it. Shamrock tells him to slow down. He says Shanks isn't even fully healed yet, and there's no rush. Then he says something interesting. He says he understands Shanks. He can feel him. He says Shanks wasted 24 years of his life living in the surface world. He also says that Shanks coming back and immediately talking about how disgusting the surface world is proves that the celestial dragons aren't wrong. The lower world really is trash. And that, according to Shamrock, is why the rest of the world is so alien to him. What's important here is that Shamrock genuinely cares about Shanks. And I'll go even further. He still cares about him in the future. When Shamrock talks about Shanks later to Loki, he says his younger brother returned to the Holy Land but became too attached to the filthy lower world. It shows Shamrock doesn't hate Shanks, he hates the surface world, which is completely natural for a celestial dragon. Honestly, it could have gone either way. Shanks could have been the one taken to the Holy Land, or Shamrock could have ended up on the surface. It was just fate. There's also a small but noticeable detail. Look at their clothing. Shanks wears a closed shirt, fully covered. Shamrock wears an open chest shirt, but in the future, it flips. Shanks wears an open chest shirt, and Shamrock wears a closed one. It's like they're subconsciously borrowing each other's style. They don't hate each other, they hate their circumstances. Shanks hates the Holy Land. Shamrock hates the surface world. Shanks keeps pushing the act. He says he hated everything about the surface world. Clearly acting, overdoing it. Harold looks back at Shanks during this and starts catching on. You can almost see it click in his head. He's realizing Shanks might be putting on an act for a reason. That same year in Elbaf, the scene shifts to a fishing village. Ida is shown lying in bed, sick. Matto and another person stand beside her, clearly worried. They suggest using the world government's influence to find a skilled doctor for her. Ida refuses. She says she'll recover, she's fine, and she insists on reopening her bar even while she's sick. They mention that whenever Harold is home, he always goes to the elders to beg for permission to legally marry Ida. So let me get this straight. Harold is the king of Elbaf. He's strong enough to tear his own horns out. He can destroy countries. He can work for the world government as literal god steel. But suddenly some random crusty elders are like, nah, and that's it? Oh no, the elders. What will we ever do? Ida says that even though Harold knows she has no problem living in a tavern, he still wants to marry her. She says she enjoys talking with sailors from all over the world, and she adds that while it might not be much, it will help Harold. Suddenly Loki shows up asking for Ida. He doesn't come empty-handed. He has a massive dead moose with him like it's nothing. He tells Matto to cook it for Ida, says she needs to eat properly. Then he adds that he loves Ida's tavern and wants her to reopen it soon because it's his hangout spot. At this point, Loki has changed a lot. It's obvious. He clearly cares for Ida, but he never says it out loud. Meanwhile, Hajrudin sails out with his friend to search for a proper doctor for Ida. Ida brushes it off, says everyone is overreacting and that she's fine. Still, you can see it makes her happy. Knowing her sons are worried about her means everything to her. Then the scene shifts to the alcohol village, Loki's village, the same place his biological mother came from. Loki stands there facing Estrid's relatives, and they're disgusting right from the start. They tell him how unbearable it is that a foreign woman like Ida is making her way into the royal family. They say they're Estrid's relatives, and they won't tolerate someone else interfering with their inheritance. Then one old goblin-looking bastard with a jaw shaped like an actual ass proudly says he slipped poison into Ida's food. He says her days are numbered, that she'll definitely die. They say all this to Loki with smiles on their faces, expecting him to agree. So yeah, that's the reason Ida was sick. Cut back to Ida, now visibly much worse. Matto calls Harold immediately to tell him about her condition. Ida, barely holding on, says how much she loves Loki. She says she sees him as her cute little son, her real son, her own. Meanwhile, in the alcoholic village, Loki snaps. He grabs his hammer and brings it down on that loser with a powerful strike. He grabs him by the neck, lifts him up, and demands to know if Ida is really going to die. By now, the entire village is getting obliterated. Houses are burning, everything is collapsing. Loki has destroyed the entire place. He squeezes the man's neck harder and starts yelling. He says he remembers exactly how much his birth mother hated him, how she threw him into the underworld like trash. He says he doesn't care about inheritance. He tells them his whole family is garbage. He asks again if Ida is really going to die. He squeezes harder. That man is dead. No question. Then Loki breaks down completely. He remembers the first time he met Ida. He remembers her asking him if it wouldn't be nice to live together someday. He screams in emotion that Ida is the only mother he has ever had. The only one, ever. This is the first time Loki fully lets it out. He loves her. She is his mother. The story shifts to the news. People all over the world are reading the newspaper, and the headline is about the giant Marines. The giants working in the Navy are suddenly insanely popular. At first, people were terrified of them, but now that they've actually seen them serving in the Navy, opinions have flipped completely. Some civilians even say they want to meet a giant in person. The papers talk about how reliable giants are as Marines. At the same time, among humans, Elbaf's food is blowing up in popularity too. People love it. Giant cuisine is trending everywhere. All of this is because of King Harold's efforts. Slowly but surely, the world is starting to understand the giants instead of fearing them. Back in Elbaf, Harold gives a big speech. He talks about how once Elbaf officially becomes a member nation, they'll build sightseeing ships so giants can visit allied countries. He says giants might be rare in the wider world, but they aren't the only ones. There are many races just like them. He talks about giants finally living peacefully alongside everyone else, sharing knowledge, culture, and history. The citizens cheer. They're excited. But then some giants start saying things like, "Yeah, this is great. We can finally throw away all that warrior stuff." And that's where it gets bad. Being a warrior nation is not a bad thing. It's an honor. Giants have been known as warriors forever, and there's nothing shameful about that. Their warrior code has good parts. Dory and Bragi's duel was legendary, fair, honorable. That's Elbaf's identity. Wanting peace is fine, but throwing away warrior pride completely is just wrong. Harold doesn't see it that way. He's fully focused on peace and change. He doesn't want Elbaf to be known as a warrior nation anymore. He wants giants to be known as peaceful people across the world. A school gets built, the Walrus School. Children are playing together peacefully. Harold watches them and thanks Saul for building it. Saul asks him if he doesn't miss the pride Elbaf had as a warrior nation. Harold says he doesn't believe military power can protect a country anymore. He says everything he believes now came from Ida. He says Ida was the greatest thing that ever happened to his life. Then we see a grave. It says Ida. She's dead. The poison took her life. We get a flashback. Ida is sick, lying in bed, talking to Harold. She says when she first came to Elbaf, the country was full of internal conflict. But Harold changed everything. Elbaf changed completely after he became king. Children can study now. They can laugh. It's a totally different country. Harold says he'll change Elbaf so completely that all the old, backward traditions, including the warrior era, will be thrown away. Ida gently disagrees. She says peace and education are good, but Elbaf's warrior pride isn't bad. It's something beautiful. She tells him to cherish the old parts of the culture too. Harold pushes back. He says the very reason he can't legally marry Ida is because of those traditions. He says he can't accept that culture anymore. Ida smiles and says Harold always wanted her to be his legal wife, and that alone makes her happy. She calls him cute. Harold, looking funny, says that if that happens, Loki will always be Hadruddin's little brother, won't he? Ida says that, in her heart, she always thought of Loki that way. She says feelings like that are what keep her going. She says everything will be okay. Harold is everybody's king. Harold says it won't take long. One day he'll change Elbaf completely, and then they can finally travel the whole world together, just like old times. Ida says that sounds amazing. She's looking forward to it. She grabs Harold's hand. That's the last moment of her life. Harold walks out of the room crying. Everyone rushes in. Hadruddin and his friends arrive. Ida is dead. She died smiling. Everyone is crying. Harold, Hadruddin, they're friends. And Loki. Loki is imprisoned, probably because of what happened in the alcohol village. Everyone shares their pain together, except Loki. Loki cries alone in his prison cell. No one around him. He suffers completely alone. The story shifts again, years later, 14 years before the present time. Harold is now in the Holy Land. The 5 elders tell him that Shanks has gone missing. If Shanks had completed his last mission, he would have already become a Knight of God. But since Shanks disappeared, that opportunity is gone. And that opportunity now goes to Harold. The five elders straight up ask him if he's willing to become a Knight of God. Harold says that if this secures Elbaf's place as a member nation of the world government, then he's ready. The five elders accept his answer and bring him deeper into the castle. They tell him that the Great One, Imu, has agreed to this. Harold will become a Knight of God. They start hyping him up hard. They tell him he'll be remembered as the king who brought great change to Elbaf. They act like proud mentors, like benevolent leaders. It's obvious manipulation, but Harold is too deep in this mindset to see it. Harold speaks honestly. He says that once Elbaf becomes a member nation, he would rather step down and let someone younger rule the country. The elders say that decision is not his. That's up to Imu. Harold is then brought into the same room, the same throne room, the same place where Cobra was brought. He looks up and freezes. The throne isn't empty. Imu is sitting there. Harold is visibly shaken. Imu welcomes him and says they have been watching him for a long time. Suddenly, Harold screams in pain. The mark on his arm changes. The shallow sea contract is overwritten by the deep sea contract. The deep sea, Shinkai Keiyaku, or the Depths Covenant. It is the second of 3 stages of the covenant. The first stage was the shallow contract, Senkai Keiyaku. While it does not appear to grant any special abilities, it prevents the holder from disobeying a direct order from Imu when close to them. The second stage, which Harold has now received, is the Deep Sea Covenant. It is granted directly by Imu once someone has officially joined the Knights of God. The bestowal is accompanied by smoke emitted from the pre-existing shallow mark, as well as intense pain for the recipient. This is the first covenant stage that grants abilities. The Abyssal Covenant, Shinkai Keiyaku, meaning deep sea contract, is the final stage of the covenant for subordinates. Its symbol and purpose are still unknown, along with who receives it. According to the 5 elders, both the depth and abyssal covenants are reserved for a total of 13 individuals. The final covenant is the Demon Covenant. Ekuwaru, also known as the Diabolical Covenant, is another form of covenant that Imu specifically invokes in battle against enemies, transforming them into demons. This is enacted through a technique called domi reversi, a Latin word that means return to home, which can be performed in multiple ways. Imu can trap a target in an abyss before flipping their hand and rotating the target into the ground, causing them to emerge with the demon's body. Alternatively, Imu can enact domi reversi by stabbing the victim with 2 black tendrils. Once the transformation is complete, additional targets can be transformed simply by being placed between 2 existing demons, similar to the board game Reversi. Once transformed into a demon, the target gains an immortal body and greatly enhanced strength, which Imu calls the power of God, Kami no Chikara, but this comes at the cost of part of their lifespan. Unlike the other 3 covenants, those under the Demon Covenant are completely stripped of their rational mind and become bloodthirsty, violent monsters whose only purpose is to cause destruction and fight Imu's enemies. While there is no known defense against this technique, sufficient willpower can delay the transformation, even if only briefly. Back to the story. Harold is now officially a Knight of God. He feels power surging through his body. He says it feels chilling. Mars explains that this power is immortality. Harold is now immortal. Warkuri adds that even now it sends chills down his spine. Nasjuro says Harold has been forged into a weapon greater than any wild monster. Imu tells Harold to consider himself a Knight of God, sworn entirely to Imu's loyalty. Harold can't believe it. Immortality sounds unreal to him. It doesn't feel possible. Imu then orders him to draw an abyss pentagram in Elbaf. This mark will connect Imu, Elbaf, and Harold directly. Harold doesn't question it. He's just happy. Happy that Elbaf is finally going to be a member nation. He returns to Elbaf and announces it proudly. Elbaf is now officially part of the world government. His efforts worked. Everything he sacrificed, everything he endured, it finally paid off. At least, that's what he thinks. And that's the scariest part. The scene shifts to Aurust Castle. Harold sits on the throne. The pentagram has already been carved into the castle, exactly as Imu ordered. The moment it's complete, Imu's voice reaches him. Not through a snail. Directly. Telepathically. From the Holy Land, Imu can speak to any Knight of God whenever they want. And this is where Imu finally drops the order. Imu orders Harold to mobilize the entire nation. Every giant. Elbaf is to become a grand army of warriors and work for the world government. Harold freezes. He's in complete shock. Imu calmly explains that from now on, the giants will work alongside the navy. Elbaf will serve the world government directly. Harold immediately tries to stop them. He says this is not what he agreed to. This is the exact opposite of everything he wanted. He wanted Elbaf to be violence-free. He says if someone chooses to join the Marines, that's fine. But turning the entire nation into a war machine? Forcing every giant into battle? That was never the deal. The guards around him look confused. From their perspective, Harold is just talking to himself. Imu cuts him off. They remind Harold that he vowed to atone for Elbaf's history, even if it meant becoming a slave. Harold snaps back that he was meant to bear that burden on his own, not the entire nation. Imu shuts that down instantly. They tell him the burden is too great for one person to carry alone. Then Imu's tone changes, cold, absolute. They tell Harold that he can no longer disobey. Those who enter the deep sea contract gain immortality, yes, but it comes with total obedience. Harold feels it immediately. His body starts moving on its own. Imu is controlling him. Harold begins to lose control of his limbs, his voice, his breath. In panic, with what little control he has left, he shouts for the guards to come at once. It finally hits him. The truth. It was all a lie. Imu never wanted peace. They wanted Elbaf as a weapon, a nation-sized army. The guards rush in and freeze when they see their king. Harold is shaking, barely holding himself together. With his last bit of control, he orders them to summon Jarul and his sons immediately. Then he tells them to chain him to the pillar, right now. No hesitation. The guards are horrified. They tell him Hadruddin is currently out at sea. Loki is imprisoned. They ask what's wrong. They ask why their king is acting like this. Harold snaps. He says none of that matters anymore. He orders them to release Loki immediately. As fast as possible. The guards rush to the prison. Loki is freed. They tell him the king wants him at the castle at once. At the same time, Jarul is also summoned. What happens next will be remembered forever. The massacre of Arust Castle. The day Elbaf's beloved King Harold was killed, the story shifts to Gaben's house. Somewhere in the realm of the sun, Shanks has arrived there. From Gaben, Shanks learns that Roger had a son. Gaben says Garp told him this, which makes sense, because Garp was most likely the one visiting Roger back then. He also tells Shanks that the kid is completely out of the Navy's reach. Shanks gets genuinely happy and says that means he basically has a little brother now. Gaban laughs and says of course Shanks and Buggy were always like sons to them anyway. Shanks then wonders out loud if Ace is going to be the one who becomes the pirate king of the new era. Gaben shuts that idea down immediately. He says titles like that aren't hereditary, and most people who grow up buried under insane expectations usually fail before they even reach the top. Shanks thinks for a moment, then laughs and says that honestly, that just makes things more interesting. Fair enough. Meanwhile, back at Arust Castle, Loki and Jarul arrive. Inside the castle, chaos has already started. Harold has knocked a giant unconscious. The guards are completely confused. These are the same guards Harold himself ordered to chain him. But when one of them tried to restrain him, Harold knocked him out cold. Inside his own head, Harold is panicking. He's asking himself why he did that. He realizes his body is moving on its own, without his will. He wonders if it's really true that someone bound by this contract cannot disobey. He wonders if this will last forever, and then the realization hits him hard. If that's the case, his body isn't just his anymore. He's a walking hazard, a danger to Elbaf itself. In his mind, everything collapses, all his efforts, all the sacrifices, all the pain. 144 years spent trying to turn Elbaf into a peaceful nation. All of it completely wasted. He doesn't hesitate anymore. Harold orders the soldiers to kill him. Immediately. Before it's too late. At that exact moment, Loki arrives. The guards attack Harold all at once. Blades pierce his body from every direction. Loki witnesses the scene in pure shock. But then Harold realizes something terrifying. He doesn't die. He regenerates. He's immortal. Harold picks up his sword and with one overwhelming strike, he sends all the giants around him flying. Jarul and Loki stare in disbelief. The scene cuts back to Shanks and Gaban. Shanks explains that both he and Harold were bound by the shallow pact of the Holy Land, meant to serve someone they call the Great One, also referred to as Mu. He explains that the shallow sea contract is a minor one, but even then, if you're within range of Imu, you cannot defy their orders. You can't even speak freely. A flashback shows Shanks properly meeting Harold after they left the Holy Land. Harold was right. They had met before. Harold recognizes him now. Red-haired Shanks, the captain of the red-haired pirates. They spoke in the past. Shanks tells Gaban that he knows Harold well enough. Harold would gladly join the Knights of God if it meant helping Elbaf become a member nation. But to do that, he would have to accept the Deep-Sea Covenant. Gaban asks if that's a problem. Shanks explains that the covenant of a full knight grants inhuman strength and immortality. They can even travel through abyss pentagrams across massive distances. But in exchange, Imu can control them from anywhere. Total control. You cannot disobey Imu's orders, no matter how far away you are. What Shanks doesn't know is that Harold has already accepted it. Shanks continues, saying that if Harold joins that covenant, he'll be completely under their control. The world government is greedy. They'll absolutely use Elbaf as a military nation. Gaban agrees and says Harold shouldn't join. Then it happens. A massive, dark, terrifying wave of Conqueror's haki erupts from the castle. The haki spreads across the land. It reaches Gaban's house. Both Shanks and Gaban feel it instantly. Inside the castle, Loki is now directly facing Harold. Harold is about to kill the guards when Loki slams, uses his hammer, and stops him. Loki demands to know how Harold is still breathing after taking all those attacks, and why he's trying to slaughter everyone in the castle. He immediately notices it too. Harold's strength is completely different now, way beyond what it used to be. Jarul draws his sword and steps in as well. The two warriors stand together and restrain Harold. Across the castle, every guard is alerted. Chaos spreads instantly. Loki and Jarul force Harold down, demanding an explanation. Harold is barely conscious, barely able to control his body. His words come out strained. He says he has done something unforgivable. He says his mind is slipping out of his control. He tells Loki to listen carefully. He says Loki must tell the people of Elbaf what happened here, how their king slaughtered his own guards, how he stained his hands again and again trying to force Elbaf into becoming a member nation of the world government. Harold tells Loki that the people of Elbaf must know the truth, that Harold was tricked, that the world government never cared about peace, never cared about Elbaf's future. They only wanted the giants as warriors, as weapons for their own use. Loki is stunned. Harold continues, saying the world government never honored his wishes from the very beginning. Then he drops something even heavier. He turns to Elder Jarul and says that Loki is the one who must eat Elbaf's secret treasure, the legendary fruit of Elbaf, passed down through generations. A godly power. The only thing that can stop Harold. Only Loki can stop him. Harold says he never wanted Elbaf to be controlled by the world government, but his own actions led them straight into it. He calls himself the worst king in Elbaf's history. He begs Loki to kill him. He tells Loki to take the throne, to tell Elbaf that Harold was a disgrace. He says that after killing him, Loki will be hailed as a hero and become king. Loki is completely shaken. Harold says he doesn't care how history remembers him anymore. The only thing that matters is Elbaf's future. He breaks down crying and begs Loki to save it. Loki realizes just how far Harold is willing to go for his country. Harold truly loves Elbaf, but his choices were foolish, painfully so. Harold tells Loki that he's counting on him, that only Loki can make things right. Harold loses consciousness, and when he comes back, he's no longer in control. Harold snaps. He throws every guard approaching him aside. Anyone who attacks him is slaughtered. He regenerates instantly when he's wounded, but the guards don't. A monster that was already terrifyingly strong is now stronger than ever and immortal. He tears through every guard who tries to stop him. The gates of Arist Castle are sealed shut. Harold declares that everyone who witnessed him in this state will die. Anyone who knows the truth will be killed right here. Guards are crushed one after another, powerless to stop him. As bodies fall, Harold roars that he will deliver Elbaf into the hands of Lord Emu. Meanwhile, Loki sprints toward the forbidden devil fruit. He's furious the entire time, yelling about how stupid this is. He asks why he even has to eat a devil fruit in the first place, why he has to lose the ability to swim on top of everything else. As he runs, he keeps asking why Harold suddenly changed like this, why he's acting like a completely different person out of nowhere. At this point, Harold has completely lost his will. He's no longer resisting. He's fully under Emu's control now. Harold declares that Loki will not eat the fruit, that the fruit belongs to him. Loki screams back that Harold himself told him to eat it. Loki runs through the castle to eat the devil fruit. Harold starts trying to chase him down. Suddenly, Jarul jumps in and blocks Harold, trying to stop him from reaching Loki. But what happens next is brutal. Harold draws his sword and, with unbelievable strength, drives it straight into Jarul's skull. As he does it, Harold coldly says he will return Jarul's legendary sword to him properly, with respect. Harold then declares that he will eat the fruit himself and take up Ragnir. One important thing is that along with the devil fruit, Ragnir is also important. The mysterious hammer that Loki equips in the future is also significant. Loki yells that he won't let him do that. Harold starts chasing Loki. And then suddenly, Harold's body is pierced by an overwhelming surge of Supreme King Haki. A devastating blow slams into him from behind. Two legends arrive, Gaben and Shanks. They rush in immediately and ask Jarul what's going on. Jarul is gravely injured but alive, tells them that his helmet saved him. He says they have to stop Harold right now before he reaches Loki. They realize the truth at the same time. Harold has already become a Knight of God. Shanks tries to reach Harold, tries to bring him back to his senses. It doesn't work. Harold just laughs and tells Shanks to look at this power, this immortality. He says it feels incredible. He says he feels like a god. Shanks snaps. He realizes there might not be any way left to stop Harold from following Emu's will. The scene shifts to the treasure room. Loki bursts through the door. Inside the room is a single chest holding the legendary devil fruit. Resting beside it is Ragnir, the massive hammer. This is the same hammer Loki will use in the future to strike the treasure tree Adam. The hammer he says in the future that only he can wield. But then something insane happens. The hammer moves. Just slightly at first. Then suddenly, it launches itself straight at Loki. Loki barely dodges in time, completely shocked. He stares in disbelief. A hammer just attacked him on its own. The thing is literally moving by itself. Loki assumes someone must have thrown it and yells, demanding to know who did it. He rushes into the room, looks around, but there's no one there. No one. He shakes it off. What matters right now is the devil fruit. Loki moves toward the chest, ready to eat it. But before he can step inside, the hammer crashes down again, smashing through the floor completely. The entire floor collapses under the hammer's weight. Loki scrambles back as the ground gives way beneath him. He's completely confused. He can't believe a hammer can be this heavy. He barely manages to pull himself up as the floor caves in. Meanwhile, back in the castle, Harold says Loki's efforts are pointless. He explains that generations of rulers have watched over that devil fruit for centuries, and not once has it ever been eaten. Not because they chose not to, but because no one could. Ragnir never acknowledged anyone as worthy of it. That's when it clicks. Ragnir isn't just a weapon. It's a guardian. The hammer itself decides who gets the fruit. It protects it. It judges worth. Harold sneers and says that while Loki and everyone before him failed, maybe he can do it now with his current power. Before he can take another step toward Loki, his leg is sliced clean through. Gaban and Shanks strike at the same time. Supreme King Haki surges through their blades as they cut him down. Harold roars in pain, and they immediately notice something important. These wounds hurt him. They're slowing his regeneration. Gaban realizes it out loud. People like Harold, people bound by these contracts, are especially vulnerable to Supreme King Haki coatings. That's the key. They have to keep hitting him with it. Harold explodes in rage and attacks again. As they clash, Shanks asks Gaban how he knows so much about these powers. Gaban answers calmly, saying that countless times in the past, the world government tried to take Shanks back. We see flashes of it. Government ships showing up, orders being shouted, demands for the Roger pirates to hand Shanks over. And every single time, they beat the hell out of them and saved Shanks. Shanks adds that even Summers hinted at this before. Gaban laughs, nostalgic, saying it's honestly surprising the Holy Land even has fighters, considering most celestial dragons are completely useless. Shanks replies that these ones are different. They really do see themselves as gods, while living a life of luxury and worse. They actually keep well clear of the surface world. Then Shanks pauses and says, meanwhile, his life keeps giving him the chills. Gaban says you can call it fate. Harold charges again. Both fighters dodge. Shanks says he wants to save Harold. Gaban immediately shuts that down, reminding him that Shanks himself already said it. Once someone becomes a Knight of God, they're done. There's no saving them. Gaban says it straight. Even they can't stop him. Their only hope is Loki. And that realization hits hard. A monster so powerful that even Shanks and Gaban can't put him down. And their best bet is Loki. It sounds insane. Meanwhile, Loki is literally arguing with the hammer. He yells at Ragnar to get out of his way. He's piecing it together now. Ragnar isn't just blocking him, it's protecting the chest. Loki wonders what the hell Ragnar even is. Ragnar answers by launching itself at him again. Loki snaps. He's done with this bullshit. He grips his hammer, and Supreme King Haki erupts from it. Yes, it's confirmed. Loki possesses Conqueror's Haki. He swings with everything he has. Armament and Supreme King Haki layered together, backed by the raw, monstrous strength of an ancient giant. The form is also very clean. It looks like a picture-perfect hammer strike. The blow crashes into Ragnar with devastating force. The clash shakes the room. But Ragnar doesn't break. Not even close. Instead, his own hammer is broken. Loki freezes for a second, shocked. His own hammer has broken. Then something even more insane happens. Ragnar changes. The massive guardian isn't just a hammer. What's been guarding this treasure for centuries finally reveals itself. It's not some divine construct or ancient machine. It's a small creature. A tiny squirrel-like being pops out, clearly alive, clearly sentient, and clearly pissed. It's got a huge bump on its head from Loki's strike, tears streaming down its face as it squeaks and cries in pain. This little thing has been living here for centuries, guarding the fruit. The squirrel looks up at Loki, still crying. Loki has been chosen. The guardian accepts him. Ragnar is his now. Meanwhile, back in the castle, Harold keeps slaughtering guards non-stop. Shanks and Gaban are getting more frustrated by the second. Worse, they finally realize something terrifying. Harold also possesses Supreme King Haki. That explains everything. This isn't like fighting the usual monsters they've dealt with before. Harold's presence is overwhelming. He's far stronger than anyone they've faced who wielded this power before, which also confirms something important. Not all holy knights have Supreme King Haki. Harold is different. The guards keep throwing themselves at him anyway. They know they can't win, but they do it to buy time. One by one, they're cut down. Bodies pile up. Blood covers the floors. The castle is absolute chaos. King Harald is killing everyone in his path. Back in the treasure room, the little squirrel, Ragnar's true form, happily welcomes Loki. It nudges the chest forward like, "All right, it's yours." Loki opens it. The devil fruit is tiny, laughably small for a giant like him. He doesn't hesitate. He eats it. Instant regret. It tastes like absolute shit. Then his body starts changing. Claws burst from his hands. Spiked hair erupts along his back. His muscles swell, his frame shifts, bones creak and grind as his body reshapes itself into something unnatural. This isn't some basic power-up. It's a massive physical transformation. A mythical zone, most likely. Some ancient, terrifying creature. Reptilian, beast-like, maybe even dragon-adjacent. This fruit is pure physical dominance. Claws, spikes, raw strength pushed beyond already insane limits. And now think about it. Loki wields Ragnar. Loki has Supreme King Haki. He is an ancient giant, much, much stronger than regular ones. And now Loki has a legendary devil fruit. This isn't just a warrior anymore. This is a monster that can stand on the same battlefield as gods. The transformation begins. Loki's body expands violently, twisting into something massive. We don't see the full form yet, just fragments, claws, scales, or fur, something terrifying. The little squirrel, Ragnar's true guardian, gets insanely happy seeing it. It's actually adorable, jumping around like, "Yes, finally this is my guy." Loki charges through the castle. Harald is still slaughtering guards when Loki arrives. Bodies everywhere. Blood on the walls. Harald turns, sees Loki, and immediately knows. "So, you ate the fruit." He tells Loki to show him its legendary power. Harald swings his axe. Loki answers with violence. A massive claw strike slams into Harald, covering his entire body. Then another, and another. Continuous, devastating blows. Harald is completely overwhelmed. We still don't get a full reveal of the creature, but it's clearly something monstrous, something mythical. Dragon-like. Wolf-like. The possible candidates become obvious. Fenrir, Garm, Jormungandr, Nidhogg. All four are ancient Norse monsters, and Elbaf is deeply inspired by Norse mythology. Any one of them could be Loki's devil fruit. Then we see it. Loki's transformed body towers over Harald. It's enormous, absolutely dwarfs him. The creature grabs Harald by the head and delivers a crushing blow that sends him flying. Before moving forward, let's talk about those four mythological creatures. First, Fenrir. In Norse mythology, Fenrir is the embodiment of raw destruction, a colossal wolf born from Loki himself. He grows so fast, so violently powerful, that even the gods fear him. Fenrir isn't clever or subtle. He's pure physical terror. Claws, fangs, speed, overwhelming strength. At Ragnarok, Fenrir breaks free and devours Odin, the king of the gods. That alone tells you everything. If Loki's devil fruit is Fenrir, then this transformation is about unrestrained rage and god-killing power. Next, Garm. Garm is different. He isn't a rampaging force of chaos. He's death's gatekeeper. A massive hound chained at the entrance of Helheim, soaked in blood, howling as the end of the world approaches. Garm represents inevitability. Once he's loose, something is about to die, and it's usually both sides. At Ragnarok, Garm fights the god Tyr, and they kill each other. Then Jormungandr. Jormungandr isn't just a monster. He's a natural disaster. It is a world serpent. It's so massive that he wraps around the entire planet, biting his own tail. When he moves, the oceans rise, storms form, the world shakes. His venom is so potent it can kill gods. At Ragnarok, he and Thor kill each other in mutual destruction. If Loki's devil fruit is Jormungandr, then this transformation is about scale. Absolute mass. Crushing power. Finally, the Nidhogg. Nidhogg is something else entirely. An ancient dragon-like beast that dwells beneath the world. gnawing at the roots of reality itself. He feeds on corpses, hatred, and decay. He doesn't rush the apocalypse. He waits, slowly weakening everything from below. Nidhogg represents rot, malice, and the long death of the world. Any one of them could be Loki's devil fruit. After the continuous strikes, Loki reverts to his normal form. He picks up Ragnir. He knows now. This is how it ends. The moment Loki grips the hammer, Supreme King Haki explodes outward. The pressure alone cracks the air. Harald smiles. He says he knew it. Loki always had the blood of a conqueror, just like him. Loki snaps back that if Harald could still come to his senses, this wouldn't have to happen. Harald shuts that down instantly. It's too late. He tells Loki not to lower his guard. He's already killed dozens of guards. There's no redemption left. Loki argues back, saying he knows Harald is being controlled. Harald corrects him. It isn't direct control. The power influences thoughts. It warps perception. It pushed Harald to the point where he genuinely started seeing himself as a god. He tells Loki that this has to be done. For Elbaf. He asks Loki to take care of his brother. Loki breaks. He yells that Harald is the worst. How is a son supposed to kill his own father? Harald pauses. He says he has one last thing to say. He thanks Loki for the alcohol village incident. He says it made him happy. Truly, he was touched by how much Loki loved Ida, by how far he was willing to go for her. The power starts taking Harald again. His body twitches. His eyes lose focus. Before he's fully gone, Harald tells Loki to finish it. Now. Before it's too late. Loki screams that he'll never forgive him, that Harald made him do all the dirty work. Loki leaps into the air. Ragnir is overflowing with Supreme King Haki. Just before the final blow lands, Harald says one last thing. I love you too. The Ragnir hits. A massive shockwave erupts from the castle, infused with Supreme King Haki, ancient giant strength, a legendary devil fruit, and Ragnir itself. The impact is catastrophic. Harald's body is completely destroyed, shattered, gone. Loki collapses. Tears streaming down his face, sobbing uncontrollably. It's too much. He remembers the first time his father met him. Harald loved him. Unlike his mother, Harald was the first person who ever showed him love. Harald, in his final moments, only thought of one thing: protecting Elbaf's future. His life didn't matter. Loki has lost everything: his idol, his mother Ida, and now his father by his own hands. Loki was never the villain people said he was. In the next scene, after Harald is finally defeated, Gaban says it straight. If Harald had left the castle in that state, the entire world would have been dragged into absolute calamity. Gaban admits that while fighting him, he genuinely thought that might happen, because no matter what they did, Harald just kept regenerating. Nothing worked. It's shocking even for them that Loki actually managed to stop him. Gaban asks Jarul if he knew the devil fruit was this powerful. Jarul says he had no idea about the fruit itself. But one thing is clear. If Loki hadn't been there, nobody could have stopped Harald. Not them. Not anyone. Shanks starts remembering his time with Harald. He remembers Harald saying he would become a knight of God and that it would bring a new dawn for Elbaf. Harald was a good man who wanted nothing but peace. But he trusted the world government and got completely manipulated. Then Shanks remembers his own past. A flashback of his father, Garling, smiling cheerfully and telling him that any wish Shanks has would be fulfilled. That he could have anything. Garling tells him to forget the surface world, saying he understands how miserable Shanks' life must have been, living among commoners who don't even count as people in their eyes. On one side, Shanks sees a good man who wanted peace and was manipulated into destroying himself and his country. On the other side, celestial dragon garbage who call themselves gods and treat everyone else as dirt. That contrast snaps something in him. He becomes angry at why he was born a celestial dragon. Shanks gets so frustrated that he starts ripping out his own arm. He doesn't want to be part of this rotten system. Before he can tear it apart completely, Gaban stops him and holds him back. He tells Shanks that you can't change where you come from. You don't get to choose your birth. You have to live with it. Shanks yells, full of anger and sadness. He asks why Harold had to die. A man with a pure soul. He blames himself, saying that if he had acted quicker, maybe Harold could have been saved. Gaban reassures him. He tells Shanks it's not his fault. He says Shanks is here for a reason. Everyone's life has meaning, even when it doesn't feel like it. The scene shifts to Loki. He's sitting next to Harold's body, crying. He says quietly that this must be what happens when you love your country too much. This is what Rox meant back then. When Loki asked why Harold hadn't joined him yet, Rox said it was love. Harold's love for his country, his people, and Ida was too strong. That love is what destroyed him. Loki cries harder, overwhelmed with pain and frustration. The scene shifts to Marijois. Imu is talking with the five elders. They report that Harold was a rare ancient giant, enhanced with even more power and granted an immortal body. Those traits turned him into a true monster. A monster who was once thought capable of controlling the world. And yet, he was killed. Even with all that power, even with immortality, Harold still died. Imu starts breathing heavily. Something is clearly wrong. They wonder who could have possibly killed Harold, who in Elbaf could be strong enough to take down someone like that. The five elders say that Harold carved an abyss pentagram, so they could trace it and find out what happened. Imu shuts them down immediately and says that won't be necessary. Anyone strong enough to kill Harold would also be strong enough to kill a Knight of God. They don't want to lose another one. Imu then makes something clear. Every covenant comes with a price. Even Imu has to pay it. That's the real reason Imu is struggling. They can't just create unlimited Knights of God. There's a cost, and that's why they only choose people who are powerful and worthy. Imu reflects on Harold specifically. Harold was different from the others. Even though he was born an ancient giant from Elbaf, a race that loves battle, he had no problem living peacefully with humans. All he ever wanted was to coexist with other nations and people. Something completely different from what giants are usually known for. Imu admits that if Harold had been allowed to join the world government properly, he might have destroyed the system from the inside. A cooperative ancient giant king was an unprecedented opportunity, but the outcome was disappointing. Imu concludes that history doesn't lie. Giants will never truly work with the world government. They never have. Then comes the chilling statement. Imu tells the five elder to never forget that Elbaf is a land of D. The scene shifts back to Arust Castle. Loki announces that he's setting sail. He says he'll take the surviving guards with him. Jarul asks him about Harold's final request. Harold wanted Loki to tell the people of Elbaf what really happened here. Loki refuses. He says there's no way he can tell them the truth. He tells everyone else to stay silent as well. No one is to speak about what happened in this castle today. Jarul asks who will take the blame for all of this. Loki answers without hesitation. He says it will be the same as always. He'll take the blame. He says he doesn't see himself following Harold's ideals anyway, because those ideals are exactly what led to this disaster. Instead, Loki says he'll handle things his own way. Using his own methods, his own strength, he'll deal with the aftermath, the regrets of Harold and the fallen soldiers. Everyone around him is uneasy. There's clear concern about the path Loki is choosing. Shanks and Gaban are visibly worried too. They know how massive the world government is, how deeply rooted it is. Picking a fight with them now would be far too early, and we already know what happens later. Loki goes out to sea and starts rampaging. Most likely, what actually happened is that he began attacking the world government directly. He probably went after them on his own, head on. But before he could go too far or get himself killed fighting the entire system alone, Shanks stepped in and stopped him. That's when Shanks became a Yonko. Loki was given a bounty of 2.6 billion while he was still active at sea. He was most likely captured by Shanks about 8 years later. Loki himself says he was imprisoned for 6 years when he meets Luffy, and the Arust Castle incident happened 14 years ago, so the timeline lines up. The story then shifts to the present. Loki is telling this entire story to Hadruddin, who had asked him to be released. Loki says that by the time Hadruddin returned to Elbaf, Loki was already known as Loki the Patricide. He never tried to fix that narrative, but it wasn't like he was proud of it. He never bragged about killing his own father. It's not like he wanted to do it. He just couldn't stand by Harold's ideals anymore, because he saw exactly where those ideals led. Loki yells at Hadruddin and asks him if he really thinks he could tell the people of Elbaf everything that happened with all of that still in his head. Gaban steps in and says Loki is telling the truth. Loki goes quiet again. The incident still haunts him, and reliving it clearly hurts him. Hadruddin finally understands why Jarul always rejected the idea of executing Loki. Hadruddin also realizes something else. Their father chose death over becoming a tool of the world government. He understands now that the world government is nothing but an enemy to the giants. He starts wondering what they really did to Harold. Gaban says that, in fact, the world government has already sent more God's Knights to Elbaf, some of them with deep connections to Harold. Even Loki doesn't fully know the details of Harold's dealings in the Holy Land. Gaban says he can explain everything to Hadruddin if he wants. Nearby, Hadruddin's friends. Gerd, Goldberg, Rod, along with Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy, are listening to the entire conversation. Hadruddin says it's not necessary anymore. He doesn't need any more reasons to protect his country. Without hesitation, Hadruddin releases Loki's chains. He apologizes to him and says that they feel the same way about their father. He tells Loki that they can work together now for Elbaf, for the sake of the country. Loki is finally free. Luffy is clearly happy. Loki's finally released, and now he can finally see Loki fight. Then suddenly, a massive shockwave erupts nearby, like something enormous just slammed down in the underworld. It's one of Killingham's MMA, and it's already reached the underworld right in front of them. Hadruddin and Luffy stare at the monster in shock. Loki, on the other hand, just grins and says this thing looks like a perfect warm-up for him. He tells Hadruddin and the others to head back up using the pulley with their ships, since Loki can just jump straight up to the Sun Realm anyway. As Hadruddin and his crew start leaving the underworld, everyone apologizes to Loki and says they're truly sorry about everything. Hadruddin admits he still has a bit of beef with Loki and says he can't just erase all his past mistakes, but that doesn't change the fact that he understands now. Loki waves them off and tells them to just go already. Once they leave, Loki stretches and starts moving around. He says it feels damn good to finally move again. After being imprisoned for 6 years, the freedom feels unreal. He starts running, clearly enjoying every second of it. Meanwhile, Luffy is laughing like an idiot and clinging to Loki's body. Gaban speaks up and says he knows Chopper wants to stay and treat him, but he's more worried about his son right now. Chopper nods, and he and Sanji head up to the Sun Realm, with Sanji carrying them using his moonwalk technique. Loki looks down at Luffy, confused, and asks why he's still hanging off his shoulder. Luffy, having the time of his life, says he wants to see Loki fight up close. Loki jumps forward, grabs his hammer, and tells Ragnar to show Luffy its real power. He swings Ragnar with brutal force straight into the giant MMA. The attack is called Niflheim. What happens next is unexpected. The massive giant is completely frozen on the spot. Thick ice spreads over its entire body, locking it in place and stopping it from moving at all. Niflheim comes from Norse mythology. It's the primordial icy, mist-covered realm of darkness in the far north, one of the 9 worlds. It also lines up perfectly with the underworld of One Piece. Luffy stares at the frozen giant in total shock. The scene shifts to Hadruddin and his group ascending toward the Sun Realm using the massive elevators of Elbaf. As they finally arrive in the Sun World, they are immediately met with devastation. Monsters rampage through the land, buildings burn, and chaos spreads everywhere. Elbaf, once proud and peaceful, has turned into a battlefield. Gaban begins explaining everything that has unfolded in the Sun World. But Hadruddin does not need many words. He can already see it with his own eyes. That is when Hadruddin notices his Kashi lying injured on the ground. Hadruddin rushes to him, and Kashi explains the horrifying truth. Elbaf has fallen into chaos. Dory and Brogy, once legendary heroes, have gone mad. They have been turned into demons and are now marching toward the western village, intending to kill Elder Jarul. When Gerd urgently asks about the children, Kashi replies that Ripley and her team have gone to rescue them. But the situation is critical. The children may have already reached the harbor. Kashi then calls out for Rode. Rode responds casually at first, until he hears the name Bjorn. Bjorn is his little brother. The moment he realizes Bjorn has been taken, Rode panics and runs off instantly to save him. Gerd and Goldberg do not hesitate. They rush after him. At the same time, Sanji has also arrived in the Sun World. He immediately asks Kashi about the school, knowing that Nami and the others must be there. Zoro also learns the truth, that Dory and Brogy have lost themselves. Kashi desperately begs them to hurry. If nothing changes, Jarul will be killed. Realizing the severity of the situation, the Straw Hat Pirates and the new giant warrior pirates make a crucial decision. They split up to deal with multiple crises at once. Zoro and Hadruddin lead one group to reach Elder Jarul and stop Dory and Brogy. Sanji joins Rode, Gerd, and Goldberg to rescue Nami and Robin, and to stop the spreading fires threatening the Walrus School and the Owl Library. A detailed map of Branch Line 8 appears, clearly showing where every group is positioned across the massive branches of the World Tree. Near the Owl Library, Nami, Usopp, Robin, and Jinbei remain bound by Gunko's arrow-shaped restraints. Robin looks toward the distance with concern and quietly notes that the Owl Library is burning, ancient knowledge being reduced to ashes. Jinbei points out something troubling. Chopper has not returned yet. Brook also left earlier, and before leaving he seemed deep in thought. Brook is nowhere to be seen. Usopp stares at the Domi reverse giants with anguish in his eyes. Tears well up as he cries out to Master Dory and Master Brogy, saying he does not want to see them like this. Watching his heroes being controlled is unbearable for him. Across Elbaf, multiple events unfold at once. The Domi reversed giant warrior pirates, controlled through Gunko by Imu, march toward the western village with a single goal: to kill Elder Jarul. Meanwhile, Ripley, Oimo, and the unaffected giants rush desperately to rescue the captured children. The children themselves are dangerously close to reaching the port. In the western village, giants surround Elder Jarul, begging him to flee and save himself. Jarul refuses. He stands firm and declares that he has something important to say, something that cannot wait. He takes out a Den Mushi, and his voice echoes across all of Elbaf. Jarul begins by saying that before he dies, he must tell Elbaf the truth. He speaks of King Harold, their late ruler, a man who believed Elbaf should walk alongside the rest of the world. That belief led Elbaf to join the world government, but Harold's genuine desire for peace was betrayed and shunned. Jarul reveals that 14 years ago, during the massacre at Arrest Castle, he was present. With his own eyes, he witnessed Harold being killed by the act of a demon. Even in his final moments, Harold struggled not for himself, but for Elbaf. To his very last breath, he tried to keep the nation from falling into the hands of devils. The truth spreads across Elbaf like thunder. Loki did not kill Harold. Jarul explains that he did not reveal this truth earlier because it would have ignited a massive war, a war Harold never wanted. Loki took the people's hatred upon himself and sailed away for revenge. For Elbaf. Loki may have been rude, Jarul admits, but he was innocent. Shock ripples through the entire nation. The Straw Hats hear it. The intruders, Imu and the Knights of God, listen in silence. Jarul then turns his words directly toward the invaders. He declares that 3 new devils have appeared once again and attempting to conquer Elbaf. They seek to control the nation and use Elbaf's warriors and military strength for their own purposes. Jarul states that if the devils wish to destroy Elbaf's culture and history, so be it. But they must release the children. If they believe kidnapping children, burning the school, and destroying the library will crush the giant spirits, then they are gravely mistaken. Elbaf will not follow the peaceful path Harold walked. Jarul's voice hardens. This is the land of warriors. They will not bow. They will not become slaves. He speaks of the sacred Harley prophecy, which foretells that the world will one day face a great divide. When that day comes, Jarul declares, Elbaf shall stand against the world government. No more peace, no more submission. If the world government believes petty tricks, illusions, and reverse-eye games are enough to subjugate this nation, they are wrong. This is a country that once ruled the New World. Zoro listens from afar and quietly comments that he likes Jarul's attitude. Hadruddin reminds him that Jarul was once known as the strongest man on the seas 300 years ago. Jarul finishes by declaring that they will protect the peace Herald dreamed of. But they will do it the old way, the warrior way. The giants of Elbaf rise together. Their voices thunder in unison, echoing across the island in absolute agreement. Usopp, still bound by the arrows, is overwhelmed with emotion. His eyes turn into hearts as he cries out that this is the Elbaf he loved, the Elbaf he admired. Nami snaps him back to reality, scolding him and reminding him that inspiring speeches will not get them out of the arrows. At the same time, Dory and Brogy, still under the control of Domi Reversi, arrive at the western village marching forward to strike Jarul. Jarul and the Free Giants stand ready, even if it means fighting their own friends. From behind the controlled giants, Zoro, Hadruddin, and Stanson finally catch up, reaching the very edge of the marching demons. Hadruddin warns that if they get caught between them, they could also be turned. Zoro grips his swords, his expression calm, cold, and confident. He says he has a plan, and from the look in his eyes, he fully believes it will work. And that plan likely begins with understanding the game being played here. Domi Reversi works almost exactly like the board game Reversi, also known as Othello. In that game, two sides place pieces on a board, and when your pieces trap the opponent's pieces, they flip to your color. That is the core rule of the game. Domi Reversi follows the same logic. The giants are not just defeated, they are flipped and turned into dark pieces. Now here is the mistake most players make in Reversi. They think having more pieces early means they are winning. Beginners rush to flip as many pieces as possible, but experienced players know that the game is decided at the end, not the beginning. Positioning matters far more than numbers. If you flip too much too early, you actually limit your own future moves. And that is exactly what the world government is doing right now. By turning so many giants into demons, they are flooding the board. The darker the board becomes, the fewer options they have left to continue flipping pieces. That is where Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji come in. Having fewer pieces right now is not a disadvantage. It is an opening. With fewer white pieces left, the enemy has fewer legal moves. All it takes is flipping the right giants at the right time for the balance to shift completely. This is where Gear 5 fits perfectly. If Imu's power represents darkness, turning giants into black pieces, then Gear 5 represents the opposite. Gear 5 is the force that flips pieces back to white. It applies pressure at key points until the color changes again. Once the important pieces flip, the surrounding ones naturally follow. That is how reversals happen in Reversi, and that is how Elbaf can be reclaimed. Zoro understands this. His plan is not about charging in and cutting down everything in front of him. It is about timing, positioning, and striking only where it matters most. When the balance shifts, the rest of the board will collapse on its own. It is a game, and Zoro knows exactly how to play it.